I spoke to a guy before this, and he said America first. You weren't happy with that. Why?
Israel would not exist without America.
So no America first for you?
No.
Are you an American?
Yes.
And you don't want to put America first?
No.
I have proof the Biden administration knew that $6 billion they released to Iran would be used for terrorism. How do I know? Because Secretary of State Antony Blinken basically admitted it.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas.
I played this clip on September 12th. The Iranian leader basically telling America he would use that $6 billion to fund terrorism.
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
So now Israel is under a terrorist attack. Take a look at this. They're putting babies in cages and then kidnapping women and children. This little boy's name is Ezra. The reason they are taking these kids back to the Gaza Strip is to use them as human shields. Israel has a right to defend itself.
Told you. Been telling you for a while that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. And we're not even at the worst part yet. This is where the worst part begins. This is the catalyst. What we've witnessed this morning is the catalyst of what comes next, what happens next. Been saying it for months, been saying it for the last 2 years. It doesn't get any better before it gets a lot worse. And how does it happen? Suddenly. It doesn't creep up on you. That's what's interesting about what's going on here. It doesn't creep up on you. It's a cascading event. That's what we're seeing right now. Here's what's scary, folks. This Hamas thing isn't going to be anything. They're going to clean it up fairly quickly, I would believe. Israelis don't fuck around. That's not what concerns me. What concerns me is what they've said is going to happen next. Netanyahu has now vowed to go directly into Iran, to take on Iran. Israel is a nuclear power. Iran isn't. Well, they're not supposed to be. I think we're about to find out. This is what feckless leadership leads to. When you've got a man in the White House who can't make it up a flight of stairs, when a nation is more concerned about dudes wanting to be chicks. You see where this gets us? The world thinks we're weak. Men, real men, that will go and cut some other person's head off because they said the wrong thing. Those men who are not betas, they're not trans, they're alpha men. They don't care. They're laughing at us. That's why this is happening. Did it hurt your feelings? You sitting there in your dress, crying your tears? Go get yourself a helmet. Life is hard, motherfucker. It's about to get a lot harder. Candace Owens is right. You've got to grow a pair yourself. You Americans that have been sitting out there bitching about this shit and not saying anything. Your silence is why we're here. It's not just poor leadership. Your silence. You not doing your part. You waiting for somebody else to raise their voice. It's time you start raising your voices, motherfucker. Think about this. Netanyahu goes in and he attacks Iran. What do you think happens with all those motherfuckers that have come across our border? You think they're just going to sit back? Those that have come from countries that are pals with Iran and Hamas and Palestinians, the Palestinians, do you think that they're just going to sit back and not do anything here in the U.S.? What happens next is if Netanyahu goes into Iran, that means Russia and China step up to protect Iran. We're fucked, folks. We've been sold out. You kept waiting on your white knight to come save you. You kept waiting on Q to come save you. There is no Q. It's only us. U-S. Us. That's it. Nobody's coming to save us. The world is on fire. I've been telling you for months, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you've already seen, this is what's so disgusting that I have to say it. And my dude, or whatever that fucking kid's name is over in TikTok, he was telling us for a year that the spring offensive, that Zelensky's spring offensive was going to save us. We're heading into World War, you fucking cunt. He doesn't get it. The left doesn't get it. You see, the left are what Lenin called the useful idiots. That's what he called them. You see, the Bolsheviks, they supported everything that was going on. And then when it was all over, guess what they did? The revolutionaries killed them. They no longer needed them. That's exactly what this group is going to do to the left when they no longer need them. They will abandon them. Folks, you got to wake the fuck up. You got to start speaking up. This is coming to our shores. Again, you don't have to take my word for it, but I've been right every fucking time. Do you think that our southern border's open because they want to do something for humanitarian purposes? Do you think that that's the reason that our southern border is wide open? Think about it. No. It's what they did to Europe as well. Europe got the same thing. Remember the images that we saw in 2014 and 2015 and 2016 of Europe being wide open and the refugees running through and just taking over everything? We've got that going on our southern border. What happened in Europe when that started? Now, what do you think is going to happen when all of these North African Muslims who invaded Southern Europe and Western Europe, what do you think is going to happen when, well, Germany has to get in bed with the United States to go after Iran? What do you think is going to happen? Come on, think about it. Folks, this has been set in motion so long ago that you've forgotten what's happened and where we are. These little things that have happened over the last 10, 15 years, everything has its purpose, folks. I keep telling you. Long-term strategies with a plan can be done. But everyone has to know the plan. And here's what's clear. If you've read this book, you know the plan. This book right here. Klaus Schwab's little tale, fairy tale, that he released in June of 2020. Everything that they're doing right now is in here. All you have to do is read it.
The infamous Albert Pike letter to Mazzini, known as the Illuminati Plan for 3 World Wars, was allegedly written by Albert Pike in 1871. The letter outlines a plan to foment 3 world wars in an attempt to take over the world. It is claimed that the letter was on display in the British Museum Library until 1977, but the British Museum denies this claim. Some suggest that the use of the word Nazism in 1871 proves that the letter is a fraud, and others say the same about Zionism. But Zionism existed back then. Zionism was made official in the late 1800s as a non-religious nationalist movement, arguing that the Bible was proof that Jews had a lawful claim to the land of Palestine, an area that was currently inhabited by a population that has lived there relatively peacefully for centuries. Around the alleged writing of this Albert Pike letter, Jews began immigrating to Palestine with the intention of someday creating a state of Israel, which did not happen until 1948, after World War II and the creation of the United Nations. Albert Pike joined the Fraternal Independent Order of Oddfellows in 1840. By 1859, he was elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite's Southern Jurisdiction and remained Sovereign Grand Commander for the rest of his life. He was definitely aware of Zionism, and if this Illuminati plan is true, then his use of the word Nazi is plausible. Either way, the letter is worth a read, and the closer we get to the end game, the more accurate this letter appears to be. The Illuminati plan for 3 world wars. The First World War must be brought about in order to overthrow the czars in Russia and make that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. After the war, communism will be used to destroy other governments and weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and political Zionism is strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough to balance Christendom, which would be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islam. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. And the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Whoever wrote this letter had the vision to see where this is all going. By manipulating our beliefs and emotions, mankind has been herded into these wars like cattle to the slaughter.
Israel is at war. We didn't want this war. It was forced upon us in the most brutal and savage way. But though Israel didn't start this war, Israel will finish it. Once the Jewish people were stateless. Once the Jewish people were defenseless. No longer. Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling, slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors. Hamas terrorists bound, burned, and executed children. They are savages. Hamas is ISIS. And just as the forces of civilizations united to defeat ISIS, the forces of civilization must support Israel in defeating Hamas. I want to thank President Biden for his unequivocal support. I want to thank leaders across the world who are standing with Israel today. I want to thank the people and Congress of the United States of America. In fighting Hamas, Israel is not only fighting for its own people, it is fighting for every country that stands against barbarism. Israel will win this war. And when Israel wins, the entire civilized world wins.
The origin of Friday the 13th has its roots in the ongoing Holy War, specifically Friday the 13th in October, which is noteworthy, seeing as how a worldwide Islamic jihad has been called for today on Friday the 13th in October. The Knights Templar gained wealth and power by fighting as mercenaries for the Catholic Church during the Crusades. Their headquarters was in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, on Mount Moriah, where Abraham built an altar to sacrifice his son. King Solomon's Temple is a central component of all three Abrahamic religions, and especially in Western occultism. The Templars were officially known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or Templar Knights. Masonic lodges are based on the Temple of Solomon. Kabbalah teaches that the Temple of Solomon represents the metaphysical world and the descending light of the Creator through the Tree of Life. The Templar Knights wore white mantles with a red cross, a symbology that can be found throughout the history of the Catholic Church and its offshoots. The rebuilding of King Solomon's Temple is a crucial goal of many religious groups and secret societies. The Templars were not only expert warriors, they were also pioneers in an early form of banking, and arguably one of the world's first multinational corporations. They acquired land throughout Europe and the Middle East, including the island of Cyprus. They owned and operated several farms and vineyards. They built massive stone cathedrals, and they had their own fleet of ships for war and for the import-export business. When Jerusalem was recaptured by Muslim forces in 1187, the Templars were forced to leave the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, but they still managed many businesses and wielded much power. King Philip IV was deeply in debt to the Templars and began pressuring the church to take action against them. At dawn on Friday the 13th of October 1307, mass arrests were carried out against the Templars. Claims were made that the Templar recruits were forced to spit on the cross and deny Christ. They were accused of worshiping Baphomet and a mummified head believed to be that of John the Baptist. Dozens of Templars were burned at the stake, and the order was officially dissolved. The Temple Mount remained under control of Muslim forces until the British captured it in the Battle of 1917. 30 years later, the United Nations gave the land surrounding the Temple Mount to the Zionists, and the State of Israel has been encroaching upon it ever since.
The ongoing conflict involving Israel, Hamas, and Iran have been marked by extreme violence for decades. But the recent explosion of violence and conflict right on an anniversary of a past brutal attack. In light of these events, it is worth considering the significance of the recent eclipse, the prevailing energy of our planet, and the symbolism associated with such celestial occurrences. A lot of people, I don't see them making those connections. We did just have that whole eclipse, and right here's some information about the cult and how they use this time for rituals and all kinds of other evil stuff. When examining this situation from both biblical and spiritual perspectives, it becomes evident that the wickedness is exerting a strong influence over our world. You see it everywhere. The undeniable timing of these events serves as a reminder as we move forward that the world may increasingly stray from its connection with God, gravitating towards a false religious system associated with the Antichrist and its whole system that's being built and rolled out, and you see it everywhere. The pattern of symbolism can be observed in various contexts. It's in the news, it's in Hollywood, it's in the music videos, it's in TV, from halftime shows at the Super Bowl to the staging of wars and political events that we see going on all across the globe. To gain a deeper understanding, I really encourage you to go through some of my older videos and stay tuned for upcoming content. Like, subscribe, share, and thanks for the support. Just as I continue on this journey of exploring all the different realms and connecting the dots, these are my thoughts.